Is this how spirit specialists sound to you? You probably know your mezcal from tequila, or the difference between maturing and finishing. But when sip comes to chug, how cunning are you with your spirits lingo? Find a seat and let us school you on the terms every ABV aficionado should know. This is Spirits 101, the ABC of ABVs. Before we start, be sure to check out our previous booze basics to catch up on your homework. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and ring that school bell button. Distilling. There are two methods of producing spirits: pot distilling and single column distilling. Pot distilling is the oldest and more labor-intensive form of distilling, while single column distilling revolutionized the practice by allowing continuous distillation. The difference is that single column, or coffee still as it is also known, is capable of higher production, which makes the spirit purer, of higher ABV, cheaper to make. Pot stills produce more flavorsome and richer spirits, though. The ABV means alcohol by volume, and is sometimes referred to with a historic term called proof. If your potion is barrel proof or cask strength, it hasn't been diluted once it left the barrel. But if it's called overproof or navy strength, it's at least 100 proof, or exactly 57% ABV. We talked about that extensively in other videos. You probably heard fancy people refer to eau de vie. It's French for water of life, and it's a generic name for any distilled spirit. Gaelic for eau de vie is Ishkabaha, which became whiskey, while the ancient Toga people called it aquavite. You can still find the latter in the Italian aquavite and Scandinavian aquavit. Aging. Aging can be a catch-all term for a process of a spirit getting older, but it's maturing that actually changes the spirit and gives it flavors and character. See, maturing happens in the barrel. And the main star is the wood. Here's where all the magic happens. Sometimes new, sometimes used. It imparts the spirit with unique flavors, involving chemistry and whatnot. For example, bourbon must always be matured in new oak casks, while Scotch will get its rich sass from soaking in old sherry or port casks, among others. If after maturing, the spirit spends more quality time in a second or third cask, it will have received a finish. Technically, it's called secondary maturation, and it adds complexity to the spirit. A special shout-out goes to the Solera maturing process, wherein a spirit is being blended in fractions so that the finished product is a mixture of ages. The average age gradually increases as the process continues over many years. Now, if a spirit is married, it means it was blended with another spirit after maturing and bottled as a single expression. What's an expression? It's a different version of the same spirit, basically. Fool around with the proof, age, or cooperage, it becomes a new expression. Let's talk about cognac for a moment. Age is so important, they came up with grades denoting it. Depending on the age of the youngest cognac in the blend, the spirit can be labeled VS for very special, VSOP for very superior old pale, or XO for extra old. Tequila and rum, on the other hand, have their own grades. If they're freshly distilled, they'll be labeled white or silver. If they're barrel-aged, they'll be golden or amber. When they're matured for many a year, they're called dark or añejo. Bonus class, whiskey terms only. Good old whiskey's been around the booze block so many times, it developed its own street talk. Time for some speedy name dropping. Malt whiskey is made entirely from malted barley. Grain whiskey adds a proportion of grains like corn or rye to the barley mix, while corn whiskey is made mostly from corn. Mix at least 40% of malt whiskey with grain whiskey, you get a blended whiskey. A peated Scotch is made with malted barley that has been dried over a peat fire, giving it a distinct smokiness. A bourbon is a corn whiskey with a minimum of 51% corn. And Tennessee whiskey is basically a bourbon but filtered through maple charcoal for a smoother final product. If these two were made from a mash containing residue from a previous mash, they are called sour mash whiskey. Single malt whiskey must be distilled at a single distillery, while single grain is its cousin that's also the product of one distillery, but it doesn't have to be made from malted barley. It can also be made from wheat or corn. That's it for today. Now go home and do some homework with your friends. Don't forget to check out our previous Spirits 101 videos and our YouTube channel for other booze-related videos. Like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell button. And if you want to continue your spirits scholarship, explore the flavors and aromas from around the world, dive deeper and hit grad-level expertise, join Flaviar and start tasting. Class dismissed.